Good morning. Today we're going to be using John 9 as our text, and it states, "As he went along, he saw a blind man who was blind from birth. His disciples asked him, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?' 'Neither this man nor his parents sinned,' said Jesus, 'but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming, when no one can work. While I am in this world, I am the light of the world.' Having said that, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. 'Go,' he told him, 'wash in the pool of Siloam.' This word means set. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, 'Is this the man who used to sit and beg?' Some claimed that he was. Others said, 'No, he only looks like him.' But he himself insisted, 'I am that man.' 'How then were your eyes opened?' they demanded. He replied, 'The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it over my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see.' 'Where is this man?' they asked. 'I don't know,' he said." We're going to use that text, and we're going to look at the pattern that God follows throughout the Bible. A pattern, you say? Yes, a pattern. Here we have what God always wills for us is to have a relationship with him in anything and everything. How do we see relationship? Here we are, we see that Jesus about to heal a blind man, right? Jesus in this case, does his job. He mixes the mud and puts it on his eyes. What's the part of the relationship? That he told the man to go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And upon washing, he gained his sight. I don't care what part of the books of the Bible, all of them, if you want to look for examples of when God dealt with man, he always brought him in, okay? And he always had him do something along with God that would bring something to fruition, right? We can use examples. I like it because it was so important. The angel of death in the 10 plagues in Egypt, what did he say to the Israelites? Take the hyssop, put the blood over your doorpost so that the angel may not kill people in your family. Okay, so what did the people do? They went out there, took the blood, and put it on the doorpost. When the angel came, he didn't kill their family. Why? Because they were covered by the blood. They were giving you an example of the things that were to come later on. Again, thousands of years passed between that time till the time we see Jesus, who gave his blood for us to be saved, and for the death angel, of course we're talking spiritually, would pass over them so that they may not die eternally. Okay, so again we see the pattern, another pattern where Jesus tells him to do something. Of course, we also see the example of the religious elite coming into play. Do we have that here today? Yes, we do. And all they want to do is disprove. Realize that I'm not speaking about people who didn't believe in Christ, period, or try to shoot on anything and everything that dealt with Jesus. No. I'm talking about the religious elite. They themselves, back then, wanted to shoot on the things of God, the things of Christ, all the time, right? We have many people, Pharisees, and all their religious sects were always coming against Jesus. Do you honestly believe that in today's time, we don't see that. If you ever tried, look at the laws that were tried to be passed, was it last year in Los Angeles, that a Christian could not use the Bible to get people saved to come out of homosexuality. They banned it. Okay? Yes, I understand that it's not a religious group, but just to give you an idea that we might think, oh yeah, that's in the old. We don't see that anymore. Open your eyes and do some reading, because it happens on a constant basis in one part of this country, if not abroad. Okay, we see that there's been a slight turn because of the present conditions, that we see a lot more people coming out and accepting Christ, number one, praying to Him, right? Accepting Him, folks, because that pattern will never be undone. I don't care what anybody tries to convince you otherwise, it's not going to happen. Because there's only one God and His Son, Christ Jesus, along with His Holy Spirit. Nobody else can make that claim. Take my word for it, or please do yourself a favor. Research it. And you'll find that other gods, in their complete and utter anger against the people, always came against them. Always came against them. The only time that the God of Abraham came against His people is when there was constant sin. Never-ending sin. Okay? The reason of Noah and the flood was because the Bible states they sinned and thought of wickedness 24/7. Right? When judgment came to Assyria, from the moment that God said that they would be punished, 400 years had passed before the actual punishment came. Do you think that's given them enough time to repent from their sin? 400 years? So we see that God all the time gives us an opportunity forever and ever and ever, never ending. Folks, I challenge you to find a God with that kind of mercy, understanding, love for the human race. And if you listen to a lot of people out there, let me put it that way, what we end up listening to is totally the opposite. All right? They tell you how God is not doing things. Look at what's happening now. It amazes me that when man does what he does, they pat themselves on their shoulders. The moment things go bad, they point at God. Look what He's doing. No, son, listen to it. Look what you have done, what you've been doing, and be a man enough to accept that the sin is yours. The sin is yours. Own up to it like a real man. Okay? Because even with that, God gives us a door, which is His Son, to come to salvation. Listen, there's a time we need to realize, listen, this matter is completely out of our hands. We cannot control it. You can't even control the temperature in your body. So that's how bad it is. And then somehow we think with elevated knowledge that we can discuss things against God. Imagine that. You don't control your next breath. God does. For many times I've seen throughout all the examples given in the Bible of men who shook their fists in defiance. I dare you to give me an example where that individual won out in the end. They never do. Get the message? You're not going to come out of this one alive. We all know that. The only difference, are you going to come out in the no smoking section or the smoking section? That's listen. There's only two choices. Okay, and I'm not saying this just because that's what I'm supposed to say. No, and the reason I say this is because, folks, we have to make a choice, right? Are we gonna have a relationship with God? Are we gonna choose God? Are we not gonna choose God? Okay. Many times I read stories of why people don't choose God. Okay. And the reason is that they think, oh, I could not serve a God that is so vicious. There are things in the Bible concerning genocide. Okay. I could not serve a God like that. Really? So if you can't serve that God, tell me about the other God that you're serving. Tell me. How many people has he led to their death with no room for coming back? None. Okay? What do I mean by that? You know, people like to make this statement, more wars are caused by religion than any other issue on earth. I like to tell you, that's a blatant lie. That's a blatant lie. Why is that? Let's see how many people Stalin covered. Between 12 and 20 million. Pol Pot, 5 million plus. Hitler, 6 to 12 million. Tell me, where on earth have you said that? Have they said that Christianity or religion has caused more deaths? Now, is God responsible for the things man does? You don't trust him. You don't believe in him. But the moment things go south, you're like deferring. There he is. That's God's fault. If he was truly a God, he would not allow this happen. No, what you don't realize, you're at the end portion of it when you see these things happening. What do I mean by the end portion? You have sinned for so long that a just God has to correct the situation. He has to. Okay? I don't care how many times a cop stops you to give you a ticket and lets you off, that after the fifth or sixth time, even he might say, listen, I can't let you go anymore. This morning, I read a story of this driver who had been arrested DWI 10 times. All the other times he had not spent a single day in jail. What made the change? He killed a 10-year-old boy. Do you think if he had gotten punished from the first one that he would have continued? Well, he'd have been in jail, so he wouldn't be out there to have an opportunity to kill a 10-year-old boy. And because everybody was annoyed that he took out an innocent individual, the judge gave him 50 years. You see, this is the thing when you think that God has no right to punish man for his sin. Okay? We see what happens when man does not punish an individual that deserves to be punished. Why? Because as humans we have laws. We go through life following laws, rules, and regulations. And for those who says, well, I can't follow God's rules and regulations, you've been at it for a very long time. It is only rebellion that makes you separate the following of God's laws and the following of human laws. Okay? That's the only thing that separates you. One day I was flying back to my country in Belize, and I had the opportunity to sit beside an individual that clearly was dealing in tarot cards. She had her table down, she had the cards open, and I'm saying to myself, I hope I'm not beside her. Well, folks, my seat was right beside her. And as I sat down, she asked me, do you mind if I read your future? And I go, not really. I says, because I know what my future holds. How do you know that? I just smiled. I says, would you mind, like if I did? I says, no. I'll skip the little show. I said, Do you follow it? She goes, yes, I do. So we got to talking, and I found out that this was the daughter of two Baptist preachers. So I then come to explain to her, because why is she doing that if she's the daughter of two Baptist preachers? So I explained to her what is God's voice on that issue. He tells you to stay away from it. Don't mess with it. It is demonic, satanic, whatever word you want to use that you can handle. And because of that, I explained to her all these things that God requires of us. And she made a statement that made me pause. She says, you know, I've never heard anything put quite that way that you put it. And I looked at her and I said, no, that's what rebellion does. It confuses you, because as having a mother and a father who were both preachers, Baptist preachers no less, that know the Bible extremely well, your rebellion clouded your mind. Okay? Needless to say, when we parted, when the flight landed and everything, that she said she needed to look at this with a renewed mind. Folks, that's all we're called to do. Okay? That's all we're called to do. God tells us to go out and tell people. If they just choose not to accept at that time, you've done your job. You've done your job. Now they have something in their mind that God is going to touch at a later date. Trust me. Okay? I've seen it happen to people. I've seen it happen to myself. Okay? That sometimes we get really insensitive about people and their situations, because we know that the problems they're in are self-inflicted. And because, unfortunately, that my emotions follow a man's emotion, that I don't really show emotion as much as my wife does, fortunately. And sometimes I tend to be very insensitive. And so I need to learn the lesson also. I don't stand up here telling people what they ought to do and then listen, that doesn't apply to me, because that would be completely erroneous. There's never a time that we are exempt from anything in this book. Okay? There's never a time that I honestly thought I'd be doing this now, or any other time. Okay? Why? It's not my cup of tea. Honestly, it's not my cup of tea, I'll tell you. I'm a very introverted individual, meaning that I enjoy reading, I enjoy learning, I'm very quiet. Some people recognize me from somewhere and go, yeah, right. But that's the case, you see. But it doesn't matter what you are. I like Paul. And the reason I like Paul is because he's similar to my character, right? That the things of God, now, the things of God are very important, right? So that what I feel, what I think, doesn't matter. Okay? This is above me. This is above me. So the only thing I gotta be is obedient. Obedient. Just like the guy at the pool of Siloam that was blind. Folks, there's more bits of information in just that one passage. Let me run quickly through them. The issue that Jesus put the mud on his eyes and told him, go wash. Okay? This man was in darkness, literal darkness. You know, if somebody has sight and goes blind, at least he has visions of what he saw before. When you're blind from birth, you see absolutely nothing. You don't know anything. The only thing you can try to understand is what people describe to you. Okay? But it's like that little story with the donkey, how it was described, and then the elephant, and how everybody had a different story, right? At the end. But this man was in darkness. visually, physically was in darkness. But what happened? He was given light. Light to see, not only light to see, but spiritual light. Okay? Yes, God, Jesus in this case, put the mud on his eyes, but what happened to him on his act? On his act, God honored it. He honored it because of what? The person's obedience. Is that any different from us? No. When we ask Christ to come into our lives and we accept Christ, what's the side product? The side product is that we must also do something. We can ask God to forgive us. If we don't accept, it stops the process. Okay? So, just like him, his neighbors, those who had formerly seen him begging, asked, is this the same man? Nobody would believe it, right? Right? Then, of course, the Pharisees jumped in and there's no way this can happen. He cannot, and who is this man? Always trying to shoot down the issue of Christ in the lives of people. Do you think that stopped today? No. It continues headlong, going down a 70-degree mountainside. It never stops. You ever tried it sometime? Tell people you're a Christian. See what comes against you from people you know. Right? I've had to deal with it. They go, we know you from back when. The only thing you can do is continue year after year after year after year, because what's more important than anything in your life is the decision you make for Christ. Okay? That's going to be the most important message. I think I've said that to you prior. Why? Because there's nothing more important than that. There's never a time that you can continue to live spiritually. Not physically. We're all going to die. We're all going to go to sleep, the Bible says. But when we get called up to that first judgment, folks, that's the ticket. That's the golden ticket. Am I going to be saying yay or nay? Okay, and I'm working on getting the yay, because nay don't sound good. It never is when you're rejected. And Christ has done what? Opened up that door for you to get a year. Okay, because in life, nobody gives you a second chance. Everybody wants to shoot you down, keep you down, not let you come up for air. But Christ does. Don't you forget it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.